The Diamondbacks have ended with a solid base for next season's roster, but they are missing some key roles that they hope to fill during the offseason. Who will they sign, and what does that mean for our 2026 D-backs?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, the show where we talk nothing but the D-backs Monday through Friday. And thank you so much, as always, for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen of every single day. I am your host, Dane Biggs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we have some fun topics that I wanted to go over with you guys, including with free agency. Who are we going to sign? And is there actually a reality where we get Zac Gallen or Merrill Kelly back, or potentially both? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the team's payroll and what we're working with here. We've been hearing a lot about the Diamondbacks, this being their most expensive payroll year. This is the most they've ever spent. We're going to go over that a little bit and break down who exactly we're spending all this money on and what we're looking at for the 2026 season. So first off, the Diamondbacks roster is I think is looking fairly solid as a starting place. I think the Diamondbacks ended the 2025 season better than any other point in the year, even when we had Merrill Kelly and Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor and even Corbin Burns. And I think the best baseball that we played was at the very end of the season with all those players that are going to be on the team in 2026. Obviously, not every single one of them. Zac Gallen, who was on the team, he's going to be a free agent. We have as well catcher, who was our backup catcher, James McCann. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of James McCann. It's very, very ethnic name, very different name that I had a hard time remembering. James McCann. Sorry, I won't make that joke again. And a handful of others that are not going to be on the team. Some of our bullpen won't be here again. But for the most part, the majority of the team is going to stay pretty much the same. But as we talked about in not yesterday's podcast, a podcast last week, that when the Diamondbacks enter the offseason thinking, oh, well, we don't really need to add or change anything with this particular part of the team because it's fine. That tends to be the part of the team that doesn't do super well, specifically the bullpen. When we think, oh no, the bullpen will be okay, we have really good developing players like AJ Puck and Justin Martinez and all these other guys. Those are the ones that get hurt, or rather, all it takes is for them to get hurt, and the entire bullpen is completely blown up, and we have to just work with what we got. And that was what happened this last year. So what do we know about the moves we're going to make in 2026? Well, luckily, Derek Hall, Ken Kendrick, and Torey Lovullo have made it fairly clear that the priority is going to be on the pitching, which it absolutely should be. Last year, you could say that it was a priority because we signed Corbin Burns to the biggest contract we've ever signed anybody to, which I think is a smart move. He got injured, so it hasn't worked out for us yet, but I still have hope for that decision, and I think that could work out pretty well. The problem is, because we put so much money into that signing, we really weren't able to sign anybody else, particularly in the bullpen. So the reason we didn't sign any more people was because we signed Corbin Burns, the bullpen got injured, and then Corbin Burns also got injured. So we really didn't really work out for us this season. And I don't think that's necessarily anybody's fault, though I am still curious. I don't know. This is just speculation, but there's got to be a reason why so many of our pitchers, specifically our pitchers and our relief pitchers, were getting injured. Is there something with the coaching? Is there something that was happening there? I don't know. I really, really would love to know why we had so many specific, I mean, so many Tommy John surgeries needed this year. Like specifically that that injury kept happening. So I would love to know what that is. So if any of you guys have any insight, please leave it in the comments below. But anyway, we we know that we're basically going to be going for pitching. So let's go ahead and look at some of our free agents that are hitting the market this year and see if anyone would be a good fit. And we're going to start with our starting pitching here. Now we're going to go into the season with Ryan Nelson, Brandon Pfaadt, and Eduardo Rodriguez. Ryan Nelson has proven to be very, very good and consistent. I really like him. I don't think he's like a headliner, ace, all-star pitcher. Maybe he'll develop into that this year. I would love to see him just come out right out of the gate and just be dominant. And I think he's absolutely capable of doing that. I don't really expect it. And so I think we're going to need to get an ace in this offseason. And the two pitchers that we're looking at the most right now are, unsurprisingly, one Zac Gallen and one Merrill Kelly. We're going to talk more about those two here in the next segment, but they are both free agents and they both are fairly good and have a lot of experience on the team, and I think would make excellent acquisitions during this offseason. But we will talk about them here in a little bit. A few others that I have come across that I think are pretty interesting, actually. We have Dylan Cease, who is a free agent this year. And let me actually pull up his page here, and I'll show that to you guys as well. But Dylan Cease he's the Padres starting pitcher this year. He had a 1.1 win above replacement, a WAR of 1.1, which is the same as Zac Gallen's, and an ERA of 4.55, which is similar. So he didn't put up a fantastic season. So, but he has shown that he's able to do some pretty impressive numbers. And so here we have his numbers here, and a big old ad right there. You know what? The screen is not working very well, is it? But anyway, he's shown, I mean, he's had a 2.2 ERA season, 14 wins in 2024, in 2022. So he's shown he could be a reliable arm. And because he kind of had a worse season this last year, there's a good chance we could probably get him for a good deal. He may be a really good fit with the team. I don't know what the scouting report is and what the strengths of our pitching staff is, but could be an interesting look. A few others, we have Ranger Suarez of the Phillies. I think he would actually be a really good fit for the team. He's had a very good year, and he's shown that he has a lot of talent in him. And he's a younger guy. He is only, what is he? He's 30. So a young guy, we could get him on a pretty big, long contract and have him for a good couple years. But his ERA is usually, like last year, it was 3.2, 320. And the year before that, 345, and the year before that, 418, 365, and so on. So he's not necessarily I guess I should say, he's not necessarily like a Corbin Burns, but he could be, when he's good, like an Eduardo Rodriguez kind of guy. So somebody who could really help fill in that starting rotation and hopefully not take too much of our money, as he's not like that ace caliber. A few others, we have Framber Valdez of the Astros, and we have Shota Imananga. Oh, golly, sorry, I'm butchering his name. Imanaga from the Cubs, both of which I think would make fairly good acquisitions as well and good signings. However, I think they're also not necessarily like ace caliber level. But again, if you're just looking at the numbers, all of these guys, including Zac Gallen and Merrill Kelly, all kind of fit into the same category, I think. And with Ken Kendrick making it pretty loud and clear that they are going to be cutting back on salary this year, there's a good chance that, we're not going to see another $30 million a year contract going out to anybody. So these guys feel like the most likely to me. I think if I had to pick, I would say let's pick either Zac Gallen or Merrill Kelly, which I'll give my opinion here in a minute on that, and then maybe like Ranger Suarez. I think I like Ranger Suarez. But we do need to add some relief pitchers to the rotation or to the bullpen as well. And I think the way to go is you get somebody with a lot of experience and good, consistent numbers. I don't think they need to be all-star. Again, I don't think they need to necessarily be all-star level, but they do need to be able to find a role in the bullpen and execute on that role very well. And a handful of names I put together, I'm not going to go through every single one of these in detail. Some of these obviously would be better than others, but like we have Edwin Diaz is going to be a free agent this year. And we also have Robert Suarez, Ryan Helsley. We have Luke Weaver, who could be making a return to the Diamondbacks. That could be kind of cool. And we have Michael Kopech as well, who I think could be a very good addition as well. We do need, outside of pitching, we do need a first baseman. We have a few options. We have like Pavin Smith and we have Tyler Locklear, but it would be nice to get kind of a veteran player who can add a little bit more bat to the lineup. And all I'm going to say, we have 3 former Diamondback first basemen who are entering the free agency market this year. First of which, Paul Goldschmidt. We would not be getting the same Paul Goldschmidt that we had in 2017 and before then, but it would be a very fun way to bring him on. And hey, if we did end up making a playoff run and doing something cool like that, and if Paul Goldschmidt were to make it to the Hall of Fame or something, he would be a lot more likely to go with the Diamondbacks, his first and last team. Not the reason to go with him, but I think it would be very fun to bring Goldschmidt back as a rotating DH first baseman to complement Pavin Smith and Locklear. But we also have Josh Naylor and we have Josh Bell, both of which did a fairly good job on the Diamondbacks, did good numbers last year, and I think would make a good addition as well. Now, if you want to go big, Pete Alonso is also a free agent. I think he would add a ton to the team. I think that would be huge if you could have him as our everyday first baseman and then Pavin Smith as the backup. That would add a lot of pop to our offense. Not really necessary and also not really what management is looking for. But just throwing that out there, you get a good deal, which you probably won't. But if you get a good deal with Pete Alonso, if he really wants to play in Arizona, you may want to take that. Another player, we don't really need middle infielders. We have a pretty deep middle infield, especially with Marte and Perdomo. And then we have a handful of other guys that I think would fill the role pretty nicely. So I'm not even going to really worry about that. I don't think we're going to sign anybody. Third base, I could see us signing maybe one more guy. We could sign Suarez back. He's a free agent again, Eugenio Suarez. That would be very fun. I don't think we will because I think he's going to be very expensive. We could, if we also, and again, these aren't really likely, but if we're looking for like a veteran player that would add a ton to the team and we're willing to dish out, we could also look at Max Muncy, who's a free agent. And then there's also like Alex Bregman is a free agent. Are any of these guys going to come here? I think they would if we gave them an offer. I think if we were to, this is sort of a situation where we're like, okay, we're going to add pitching, we're going to sign a bunch of pitchers, and we're going to sign one infielder. Then you might be like, well, we have the money for one Pete Alonso or one Alex Bregman or something like that. I could see that maybe happening. I don't think it's likely, but it's fun to speculate. Now for catching, this is the last one I'm going to bring up. I think we definitely still need a backup catcher. I don't think Del Castillo is really thought of as our catcher, our backup catcher right now. He's kind of been designated as our designated hitter. So I don't see him really being that. I think really James McCann, he is a free agent this year. I think we re-sign him. I think he was a great guy behind the plate. I think he was really good calling games. I don't think he's all that great offensively. He's fine. I mean, he's got some power, but I don't think he is going to show much improvement in offense. But I think having him behind the plate is a big motivator, or not a motivator, but a big tone setter for the game. And then another one we could sign Gary Sanchez. He's going to be free agent this next year. I think could also be good, but I don't know. It's hard to tell with that sort of thing. And I'm not overly familiar with Gary Sanchez, but he was one that was pointed out to me. Anyway, we're going to talk about the big two signings that are the most likely. Ownership has already mentioned that they would love to get either one of these guys back, but likely not both of them. We're going to talk about Zac Gallen and Merrill Kelly right after this break, so don't go anywhere. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Okay, this is the big one. Pretty much everybody in the organization that makes decisions has already come out and said, oh, we would love to re-sign Zac Gallen, or we would love to re-sign Merrill Kelly. But when asked, well, what about both of them? The answer is always, probably not. We'd love to, but the chances of making that happen is pretty slim. I also am not 100% sure that would be a great idea, but I guess that also depends on what the alternative is. Like if you're looking at, okay, well, we could get Kelly, for example. Do we want to re-sign Gallen as well? Or, oh, we could sign, Ranger Suarez or Dylan Cease or whatever. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I'm just saying if it's like, okay, we can sign two pitchers. Do we want those two pitchers to be Gallen or Kelly, or would we rather it be Gallen and Framber Valdez or something, So anyway, if we have to pick between the two, let's figure out which one we want to get. Okay, so we have right here, we have Zac Gallen and we have Merrill Kelly. You guys have seen these guys before. Now, Zac Gallen had a 13-15 record, whereas Kelly had a 12-9 record. Zac Gallen had an ERA of 4.83. Kelly had a record of 3.52. Gallen had more innings pitched with 192 as opposed to Kelly's 184. And Gallen had a WAR, a win above replacement, of 1.1, where Kelly had a 2.9. Now, you're probably already thinking, well, this seems pretty straightforward. Obviously, we need to be going with Kelly, with Kelly here. His numbers are better across the board. And the other thing is that Kelly would likely he's expecting and would likely accept a 1-2 year deal, maybe $15 million a year. So like a 2-year, $30 million deal would probably be what he's expecting. And if we offered that as well as another team offered the same amount, there's a good chance he would come here as he's familiar with the team and likes Arizona. He's from here. He would want to come back. By the way, if you guys hear dogs in the background, they're mine, not yours. Don't worry about it. I know sometimes people listen to podcasts and they hear something go off and they're like, oh, is that my phone? No. And if you're driving, you're probably even more confused. What the heck? My dogs are in the car with me. That's weird. Anyway. But here's the thing. Oh, and Zac Gallen is where Kelly's probably expecting a 1 to 2 year contract. Gallen's probably expecting more of a 3 to 4 year deal with, worth, 100 million or more. Now, Gallen had a rough season this year. He'd easily be, he'd be hot pickings if the season went better than it did. He ended the season better, which helped a lot, I think. But he struggled this year, and that hurt his chances in a big way. So there's a much better chance that we could probably get him. We will probably send him an offer, like a I think it was 22 million is what the expected offer would be, which is like the base minimum of what we would offer him. And he's likely to say no to that, which he's probably worth more than that. So that's fair. But there's a chance he could say yes to that. But the thing that I'm looking at here, if I had to pick between the two, and I'll go back to this graphic that I had up, which if you guys are just listening, you can't see, but I'll tell you what it is you look at that bottom number there, it says age. Zac Gallen is 30 years old. Merrill Kelly is 37. That is a pretty big number there. Obviously, you get pitchers in their mid-late 30s and they still are very, very good. You get pitchers in their 40s who are still very good. Arizona fans will be quick to say, well, Randy Johnson was in his 40s when he was his best. And you're right. But it's very rare. And I think Kelly has slowed down a fair amount in recent years and is probably prone to doing that over the next few years. And so I think teams, that's why he's probably not expecting anything more than a 1 or 2 year contract, because I don't think teams want to commit to having him for that long. So we could get Kelly, and he would be a good addition to the rotation for the next year or two. And maybe that's all we need. Honestly, that may be the case. We do have some prospects that are going to be coming up that may fill the role very nicely. So I could see that being one direction they go. But with Gallen, assuming he is able to pick up where he left off and he's able to start 2026 on kind of the higher note that he ended the season on, if he's able to continue to do that, and maybe it's as a question of the pitching coach, and it took him a while to get figured out, but then finally, Gallen and the pitching coach really meshed towards the end of the season, and that's why he was able to pitch so much better. If they're able to build on that in the next year, and then he becomes, he's an all-star again and all these things, then, a 3-4 year contract with Gallen until he's 34 years old, and we get 4 more years of peak Zac Gallen pitching. That's pretty solid. So you're really looking at, do we want a more reliable 1 or 2 years with Kelly, or do we want to gamble for potentially an amazing 3 or 4 years with Gallen? That's the question. Now, personally, after saying all that, I think it kind of pains me to say this, but I think if I was Mike Hazen, I would probably extend an offer to Merrill Kelly, and I would sign him to a 1 year deal, maybe with like an opt out after that or something like that, and see where it goes. And if we're happy with the way things are going, if he's showing improvement or whatever, then sign him to a bigger deal. And yeah, maybe he's a 40-plus-year-old ace, all-star, Cy Young kind of guy like Randy Johnson was. And then we have this veteran and Merrill Kelly, and we have Corbin Burns, and we have our young prospect guys who grew up with us like Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson. We're just kicking butt. But even if it goes bad, we only have him for a season, and we're not paying him $30 million a year. We're paying him kind of more of a minimum, and after the year's up, we can move on to the next guy. So I think Kelly is the better choice. Also, the Diamondbacks do not have a very good track record with gambling on pitchers. So I think Kelly's the way to go, but I do respect the move if they did decide to go with Gallen. I respect that, and I hope the best, and I think there's a good reason to expect a positive turnout from that. So that that's my thoughts there. But please let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to see your guys' opinions and your thoughts and which way you lean on that. So if you had to go with either Gallen or Kelly, which would you pick? Do you want to see them kind of go all in and get both of them back? Do you think maybe it's better? Let's just take a step back and look at some other options. Please let me know, because you guys are sometimes you guys are a lot smarter than me in the comments sometimes, and I read your guys' comments and go, "Oh yeah, good point. You guys you guys know what you're talking about." So I actually absolutely love to hear from you guys. Anyway, we are going to talk about, finally, to end the show off, we're going to talk about some of our most expensive players and kind of analyze if they're worth it or not, and see what we could do to maybe free up some of that in this off season with trades or anything like that. So don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about that right after this. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys probably heard my dog's excitement at this next segment in the background there. Once again, that's my dog, not yours, so don't worry about it. But they want to hear about who our most expensive players are and how that all looks. So, our number one most expensive player, and I don't have graphics up for this one, so if you're just listening, don't worry, you're not missing out on anything. You even got the dogs barking in the background. Our most expensive player is, unsurprisingly, Corbin Burnes, who is making is making $30 million this year. 2026, we are paying him $30 million, which is a fair amount. Eduardo Rodriguez is second, another starting pitcher who is making $21 million. So $51 million for two starting pitchers. Now, Corbin Burnes, I think, is worth that if he pitches to the caliber that he has pitched in his career. And the same for Eduardo Rodriguez, which I feel like we saw prime Eduardo Rodriguez towards the end of this last season. I think he put up quality start after quality start, went deep into games, gave up very few runs, held on to those games, and I think he did a very good job. And so if that's the Eduardo Rodriguez we see for the majority of next season, then yeah, I think those numbers are very reasonable. I mean, two out of 5 games that are basically guaranteed to at least give us a real good shot, so long as our offense arrives or shows up. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. It is a lot, though. Now, our third most expensive is Ketel Marte at $16 million. The thing, and maybe we dedicate a whole episode to this, because this is a big and heavy subject, but there has been a lot of speculation that the Diamondbacks trade Ketel Marte during this offseason. I think, just quickly, my thought is, I think if we did that, we would have to get a lot for him. But also, that would open up our budget fairly considerably, and that would give us quite a lot of wiggle room, him being the third most expensive player on the team. So $16 million is a lot of money and a lot of very talented baseball players. Not with the same star value, but a lot of talented players. It would break my heart for that to happen, but I could see it making sense. But we'll talk more about that in another episode. Let me know your guys' thoughts, and we'll include your thoughts in the episode as well, because I would love to have more than just my thoughts in there. But that is something that I think is an interesting idea. Up next is Lourdes Gurriel Jr. for $13 million. Now there's a fair chance that we may not see Lourdes play for the Diamondbacks again. He's not going to show up until late into 2026, and then that is his final season with his current contract. So we will see what happens with that. But $13 million for Lourdes Gurriel. Corbin Carroll, we have on a long-term contract here, and it is for $10.6 million a year. So he's getting $10.6 million this year. Geraldo Perdomo is getting $6.25 million, and Brandon Pfaadt is getting $3.4 million. So the number quickly goes down, and these are players that we have locked down for a very long time, and thank goodness we do. We have very, very good deals. If you don't know, Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo, Brandon Pfaadt, and then all of our other quality players after that, we have very good team-friendly deals with them, and they are seemingly very happy to be here. So I would love to be able to make the most out of that. But that also means if we wanted to really, not that we're going to do this, of course, but this is kind of the name of the game when you're talking about trading, is you're like, hey, listen, we'll trade Geraldo Perdomo for this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and he only costs $6.25 million a year. And the other team goes, whoa, we don't have to pay that much for that guy? That's huge. And we get him for like a bajillion years because his contract is so long. Heck yes. And so that's just another element to it. I really hope that doesn't happen, because Perdomo, I think, is who we're building around, him and Carroll and that group of guys. But that's just another thing to consider. This upcoming year, our active roster totals $103.5 million, which is 15th in the MLB. We are right smack in the middle for our active roster payroll. So that is interesting. For our total payroll for 2025, not just active roster, our whole 40-man payroll and everything was reportedly $220 million, according to Ken Kendrick, which is the highest it's ever been for this franchise. And an interesting number that I came across was that in 2025, $55.6 million. So that would be just about, a quarter, almost exactly a quarter of our payroll was just to injured players who did not play the majority of the season. So $55.6 million in 2025. That is 5th in the MLB. So for anybody who says, well, injuries aren't the main reason the Diamondbacks didn't make the playoffs, they may be right, but also at the same time, the Diamondbacks were plagued with injuries in 2025, and that cannot be overstated. So that is going to be a big question mark for 2026, as a lot of those guys are going to continue to be injured into the start of the season. But again, if we can kind of pick up a few more pieces and build off of this scrappy team that we ended the season with, I think we have a fair shot at really making some noise. Anyway, you guys, that's the show. Be sure to follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Diamondbacks. We're on YouTube as well as every other place you get your podcasts. If you want to see more of me, you can find more of my YouTube channels and projects at my website, slackshack.tv. Thank you so much for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow.